Everyone loves a good story, right? Well, the ancient Egyptians did too. Now, the ancient Egyptians used myths to explain not just their origin, but also their inner conflict. One story which explores this so well is the hawk, or the story of the hawk god Horus and his triumph over his evil uncle Seth. Now, this story has been told many times since, as it connects to the human experience on so many different levels. You might see parallels of the story of Horus in Jesus' triumph over evil, i.e. Satan. Satan comes from the word or the name Set in ancient Egypt mythology. We've also got in a film, Simba's triumph over Scar in The Lion King, and also the stories of Hercules in ancient Greek mythology as he goes into the underworld to fight Hades. Now, this story, or this African story of good triumphing over evil, has travelled in very different forms around the world. Likely because it connects to our nature as human beings and our need to organise and bring good to what is chaotic and evil. The god Osiris, who represents the cultural foundations of Egypt, marries Isis at the beginning of the creation myth in ancient Egyptology. Isis's brother Seth, who represents evil intention and chaos, challenges Osiris. Seth defeats him and cuts Osiris into little pieces and scatters him throughout Egypt. Isis then takes the penis of Osiris and inseminates herself. And with that, she later gives birth to Horus, who is the hawk god that we see in ancient Egyptology. Now, Horus, who represents consciousness, good and foresight, wants to avenge his father. Horus is theorized to have inspired the story of Jesus. Horus does battle with Set and defeats him in battle. However, Set removes Horus's eye at the end of the battle, or during the battle. The eye of Horus represents consciousness and foresight and is the all-seeing eye. Horus then takes his eye and ventures into the underworld to visit the soul of his father, Osiris. Horus gifts his eye to Osiris to restore him, so taking him from being cut into little pieces to restore him to being a whole, and he provides him with consciousness via his eye to protect him from evil. Every night, the legend goes, Horus does battle with Set because evil never dies. The story of Horus has potentially not only inspired many other stories since, but it guided the ancient Egyptians into an ethical ideal. The deity Horus, the hawk god, inspired them to do good and to fight evil through ma'at to create balance. Now comes on to the part of the heavy heart, the weighing of the heart. The earliest concept of Judgment Day, where we meet a judge in the afterlife who passes judgment on whether we have been good enough to enter heaven or not, is also seen in the Book of the Dead and the pyramid texts thousands of years before we witness this in Abrahamic religions. Now, in the picture which I've put behind me, you can see an individual being led by Anubis, who is the god guardian of the Duat. The Duat is the afterlife. To have his heart, and this individual is being led by Anubis to have his heart weighed. If the heart is heavy with what we might call sin, and just to let you know that sin literally translates into being led astray, then the heart will weigh more than the feather of Ma'at. But remember that ma'at means balance. So this may mean that the individual's life was lived out of balance in the favour of bad, i.e. their life had a net negative consequence. If their heart does weigh more than the feather, then their soul, will be devoured by Amit, which is the crocodile dog creature. Now, there are a few features to draw attention to in this. First of all is the notion of balance. As in the New Testament, sin, i.e. being led astray, is forgivable to some extent. One can commit sin, but if life is lived so out of balance that the individual does more harm than good, then obviously in ancient Egyptology, their soul will be devoured by Amit. Now we see this, we see something, or something that alludes to this in the Bible. So this is from Matthew 8:12. There will be gnashing of teeth. It is a verse found in Matthew 8:12 where Jesus speaks on the fate of those who enter hell after they receive poor judgment. Now, my question would be, has the myth of Amit been translated somewhat into Christianity? It's possible. You're talking about Egyptology, or the fall of ancient Egypt, being about 30 BC, so 30 years before Christ. And we've also got very, very close time frames between the development of Judaism and also the first monotheist or the head of monotheism or monotheist religion in ancient Egypt via Akhenaten. So there are very, very close parallels where these myths might have jumped into different ideologies or different religions quite easily. So to summarize, we can see how after the unification of Egypt, Pharaoh Nama, a 5,600 year after the unification of Egypt by Pharaoh Nama, a 5,600 year empire flourished. A need to order chaos saw the development of religion, which ethical ideals followed. These ethical ideals may have formed the foundation for more recent religions, providing a framework of understanding the afterlife and the consequences of living a good or a immoral life. Now, these ethical ideals were upheld by the pharaohs themselves. This is quite different to, I suppose, today, where in a more individualistic capitalist society, the responsibility is put on the individual, right? So it's your responsibility whether or not you have enough. But the ethical ideals in ancient Egypt were upheld by the pharaohs, who had to also, it was also their duty to make sure that everyone was fed and taken care of. It was their duty to maintain balance throughout the empire by ensuring the production of food and provision of shelter. By our standards, Egypt was comparatively socialist, as were many other pre-colonial African countries. From early Egypt, we see the growth and the retraction of an empire as it interacted with foreign peoples. We also see the formation of the first monotheist, i.e. the belief in one God, religion under Akhenaten, 1501 to 1474 BC, according to the Macnaghten chronology. Now, this is theorized to inspire the later monotheist Abrahamic religions. The Torah states that Moses received the 10 Commandments from God less than 200 years after the reign of Akhenaten. We see further interesting parallels in the Abrahamic texts, such as when the Israelites lost faith in God. They worshipped a bull in Exodus 32:4, whilst Moses was atop Mount Sinai speaking with God. In ancient Egypt, the bull was a symbol of Ptah, the creator god in ancient Egypt. Moses begged God not to harm the Israelites who had been led astray in idol worship, worshipping this golden bull which they'd created. Now, what we might be seeing here is a story of a new monotheist religion forming and breaking from the traditions of ancient Egypt. But the main focus is on the connections between what is still practiced today and what was practiced thousands of years ago. We have all been affected and propelled by the amazing advancements of ancient Egypt through ethics, science, legend and sheer organisation. Both Africans and non-Africans are indebted to the advancement of ancient Egypt. Now, what I would like you to do is refer back to what we spoke about when it comes to monotheism. Refer back to what we spoke about when it comes to the parallels between the different myths which have existed over time. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to tell me why you think there are so many commonalities between old and currently practiced or non-practiced, so religions which have been left out now, so they've kind of died out. So you've got ancient Egyptology, you've got the ancient Greek myths, we have other myths from, say, the Nordic religions. And what I want you to do is tell me why there might be parallels between the old myths and these now practiced myths, ones that we have in the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, with regards here, but all of these new religious, more currently practiced religious books. Why are there so many similarities? Do you think it's because it's one true story which has been transmitted over time? Do you think it's because it's a story which helps us relate to ourselves and understand ourselves more than anything? What I want you to do is come up with your answers as groups. Feel free to debate under the guidance of your teacher, and then we'll go from there.